Michael Jackson was the biggest star on the planet. But when a hometown restaurant refused to seat his black crew while offering to make an exception for him, he made a choice that nearly detonated everything: sponsors, radio support, and the carefully polished image around his tour. What happened next didn't just change one night. It changed what people believed a superstar was supposed to do. It was August 7, 1984, in Dothan, Alabama, a small southern town most tour buses only pass through. Michael had just finished a sold-out show at the Wiregrass Civic Arena, and he was hungry. Not just Michael, his whole traveling unit was starving after 2 hours of non-stop performing and living on adrenaline. Michael was traveling with 3 musicians who had become more than a band. Darius D. Collins, 33, was a keyboard player from Chicago who could make a simple chord sound like a confession. Leon Freeman, 29, was a drummer whose pocket was so deep other musicians swore it had gravity. And Caleb Wright, 36, was a bass player whose fingers moved so clean and fast that stagehands would pause just to watch his hands work. They'd been on the road together for months. In that time, they'd become family. They'd driven thousands of miles in the same buses, slept in the same rotating pattern of cheap motels and late-night flights, and lived on the same strange tour schedule where morning didn't mean sunrise. Morning meant load-in. They'd shared stories about kids back home, about old neighborhoods, and about the first records that made them want to play. They'd protected each other from angry crowds. They'd celebrated birthdays with grocery store cake and plastic forks. And when Leon got a call that his uncle had died back home, the 3 of them stayed with him in the hallway outside the payphones until his breathing slowed. Dee had taught Michael things about music that couldn't be written on staff paper, how to let a note ache without making it messy. Leon had shown him rhythm patterns pulled from backroom clubs, where drummers learned to talk with cymbals. Caleb had introduced bass lines that made Michael's shoulders loosen and his feet move before he even realized he was dancing. They weren't employees. They were brothers. But this was 1984 in Alabama, and even with the law on paper, there were still places where people acted like certain rules were older than any statute. Everyone in town knew the Magnolia House Cafe. It was the kind of restaurant locals talked about like it was part of the town's identity. Best fried chicken, best biscuits, best sweet tea. Michael had actually eaten there once years earlier as a kid passing through on a family trip. He remembered the smell: hot oil, butter, coffee, and the way the old owner, Mrs. Magnolia Harper, had once handed him an extra slice of pie for the road. Mrs. Harper was gone now. The cafe was run by her widower, Earl Hanley, a big man in his 50s with a stiff posture and a smile that never warmed his eyes. "Come on," Michael said as the vans pulled up to the familiar white building with the green sign. "You guys haven't lived until you've tried their chicken. I'm serious. Best food within 50 miles. Dee, Leon, and Caleb exchanged a look. They'd been down this road before, literally and figuratively. They knew how this could go, and they didn't want to embarrass Michael by explaining the kind of reality they'd learned to read in a single glance. "Mike," Dee said carefully, "maybe we should just grab something at the hotel." "Nah," Michael cut in, already stepping out of the van. "I'm buying dinner for my people. We're going to the best place, that's it." They followed him inside. The moment they walked through the door, the entire restaurant went silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks hovered in the air. Every head turned to stare at the group standing in the doorway. Tour jackets, tired eyes, and the unmistakable presence of Michael Jackson at the center. A young waitress, Kelly, maybe 19, looked like she'd forgotten how to breathe. She recognized Michael instantly. Everybody did. But her eyes kept darting to his companions, then to the kitchen, where the owner was surely watching. "Mr. Jackson," she said, voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. We're honored to have you here, but I'm afraid—" "Table for 4, Michael said with his soft, polite smile, as if he hadn't felt the room freeze. "Somewhere quiet if you have it. We're starving." Kelly's face went pale. I can seat you," she said quickly, then her eyes dropped. "But I can't seat them." There it was. Michael's smile faded. "Can't?" he repeated, calm but sharper now. "Why not?" Kelly swallowed hard. "You understand," she whispered. "It's not me, it's just how it is here." From the kitchen, Earl Hanley emerged. He wiped his hands on a white apron and walked toward the front like he owned the air. He nodded at Michael with an almost performative respect. "Michael," Earl said, firm but not unkind, "you're welcome here, always." Then he tilted his chin toward Dee, Leon, and Caleb. "But you're guys," he said, choosing his words like he thought he was being polite. "They'll have to use the back window. We can pack it up to go." Michael stared at him. The restaurant was so quiet you could hear the buzz of the ceiling fan. Every customer watched, waiting to see what Michael Jackson, the most famous entertainer in the world, would do in a small diner that suddenly thought it could set terms. Michael looked at Earl, then at his musicians, then back at Earl. His jaw tightened in a way his crew recognized immediately, the calm right before a storm. Dee stepped closer and touched Michael's arm lightly. "It's okay," Dee said low. "We'll wait outside. We're used to it." Those words, "we're used to it," hit Michael like a punch. Used to it. Used to being treated like they were a problem to be managed. Used to being told, "Not here, not now, not like this." Used to the quiet humiliations that were never official, but always happened anyway. Michael thought about the past months, how many times his crew had found reasons to disappear when restaurants came up. How many times they'd said, "We'll eat later," when he suggested places. How many times they'd made excuses he hadn't questioned because he didn't want to see what it meant. They'd been protecting him from the ugly truth, shielding him from a reality they lived inside every day. Earl crossed his arms. "This is Dothan," he said. "You can eat. You're Michael Jackson. But they can't sit in here. Either they go around back, or you all go." What happened in the next 10 seconds would change everything. Michael walked up to the counter and picked up the phone. The entire restaurant watched him dial like it was a magic trick. The call lasted less than a minute. Michael spoke quietly, but people closest could hear fragments. "Yeah, it's me, Magnolia House Cafe. They won't seat my band. I need you to call a couple people, and I need a reporter, fast." He hung up. Then Michael turned to Earl and to the entire room. "I grew up in places like this," Michael said, his voice carrying through the silence. "Small towns, big rules, and I remember people who were kind, who saw people." He paused, letting the words land. "This place used to be run by someone who was kind," he continued, "and kindness doesn't have a back window." Earl's face reddened. "Now wait just a minute." "No," Michael cut in, still controlled but unmistakably firm. "You wait." He gestured to Dee, Leon, and Caleb. "These men are part of my sound," Michael said. "They help me do what I do. They're my family. And if they're not good enough to sit here, then neither am I." He turned to his musicians. "Gentlemen," Michael said, voice softening for them, "let's go. We'll find a place that serves good food and respects good people." As they started toward the door, Michael turned back one more time. "And Earl," he said, "that call I just made? By tomorrow morning, the world will know this restaurant tried to make an exception for fame and an exclusion for humanity." They walked out, leaving behind a room full of stunned customers and a very pale waitress still holding menus she no longer knew what to do with. Outside, the night air felt sharp after the diner's heat. The parking lot lights hummed. The tour vans waited like silent witnesses. None of them spoke at first. The silence was heavy. Leon's hands trembled. Whether from anger or disbelief, it was hard to tell. Dee blinked hard, his eyes glossy. Caleb kept looking back at the diner like he couldn't quite accept what had just happened. Michael leaned against the van, breathing hard, adrenaline rattling his bones. "You didn't have to do that," Dee said quietly. "Mike, you really didn't." "Yes," Michael answered immediately, voice steady despite the emotion. "I did." He looked at them one by one. "How can I go on stage and celebrate music that comes from our history, our pain, our joy, and then let somebody treat you like you're less than human?" Michael said. "How do I do that and then sit down to eat like it's normal?" He shook his head. "If I can't sit with you," he said, "then I don't deserve to be there." Caleb stepped forward and hugged Michael. Then Leon joined. Then Dee. For a moment, they stood there in a parking lot holding each other like brothers who'd just survived something they didn't know was coming. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Some headlines praised him, others mocked him. Some called it publicity, others called it troublemaking. Radio hosts argued on air about whether Michael was stirring things up. Within days, the consequences came. 3 promotional partners quietly paused their deals. A couple of southern stations stopped spinning his current single for programming reasons. Letters arrived by the thousands, some supportive, many furious. And the people around Michael, the ones who counted money for a living, panicked. His tour advisor, Rex Dalton, cornered him in a hotel corridor 2 nights later. "You just lit a match in a gasoline room," Rex hissed. "Sponsors don't like controversy. Stations don't like controversy. You're not a protest singer, you're a global brand." Michael didn't hesitate. "So are they," he said quietly. "And they're human." Rex stared. "Was it worth it?" Michael answered without blinking. "Yes. But here's what nobody expected. For every sponsor who pulled back in one part of the country, new offers came in from elsewhere. For every station that quietly dropped his record, others added it. For every angry letter, there were grateful ones, especially from younger fans who were tired of being told to accept how things are. Within a month, the tour's ticket demand didn't dip. It rose, not because people loved controversy, because people recognized conviction. And the real change wasn't in charts. It was in quiet decisions made by business owners who suddenly realized the world was watching. Within 6 months, restaurants across parts of the region started changing how they handled people. Not with speeches, not with announcements, just new behavior. A table here, a welcome there. They had seen what happened when you tried to separate a superstar from his own people. And they did the math. Earl Hanley held out longer than most. The Magnolia House Cafe stayed stubborn for a while. House rules went up near the entrance, a quiet message everyone understood. But the cafe's customer base began to thin. The tourist traffic stopped. People passed through town and chose other places. Business dropped. The cafe became a symbol, and symbols don't make good dinner conversation. In April of 1985, Earl quietly removed the signs. No apology, no press, just empty hooks where the notices had been. But it was too late. The damage was done. The Magnolia House Cafe closed later that year. Michael never gloated. When someone asked him about the cafe shutting down, he didn't celebrate. "That place used to mean something," he said. "I'm sad it forgot what it was supposed to be." As for Dee Collins, Leon Freeman, and Caleb Wright, they stayed with Michael, not because they owed him, but because what he did was the kind of loyalty you don't forget. Michael made sure they were paid fairly. He made sure the travel arrangements didn't separate them. He made sure nobody was quietly pushed to the margins when the cameras weren't looking. And he did it without making a press release out of it. Years later, in a late 90s interview, Dee Collins was asked about the night at the Magnolia House Cafe. He paused for a long time before answering. "Michael could have eaten that meal," Dee said. "He could have said, 'I'm sorry, guys,' and nobody would have blamed him. That's what people expected back then, especially in places that still lived like the past was the law." Dee swallowed, eyes wet. But Michael looked at that man and said, "If they can't sit here, neither can I." He nodded once like he was still seeing it. "That's when I knew I wasn't playing for Michael Jackson the entertainer," Dee said. "I was playing for Michael Jackson the man." The story spread far beyond Dothan, beyond Alabama, beyond the South. Not because it was the biggest scandal, because it became a symbol of what fame is supposed to be when it matters. Michael Jackson walked into that restaurant as the biggest star in the world. He walked out as something more. Someone who proved that fame means nothing if you can't use it to stand up for the people beside you. He lost sponsor money. He lost radio support in certain places. He lost fans who wanted him to stay quiet. But he gained something worth more than any deal. He gained respect from the people who understand true greatness isn't measured in chart positions or sold-out arenas. It's measured in the moments when you have to choose between comfort and courage. And that night in Dothan, Michael chose courage. If this story stayed with you, please like and subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that respect should never be negotiable. Have you ever witnessed someone use their influence to do the right thing when it would have been easier to stay silent? Tell us in the comments and hit the notification bell for more untold documentary-style stories from the world of music.